The last speaker of this session is also somebody who started his personal relations with David on the 21st century, Mr. Roy Goren, who is a grandchild of David. Thank you.
So I was asked to say a few words on behalf of the family. And so on behalf of the family, I would like to talk a little about my grandfather. Not my grandfather, the economist. We've already spoken lengthily about that today, and I doubt there's much I could add in that department. I could start at the beginning, as was mentioned before, but my grandfather was born in Krakow in the August of 1939, which is a place and a time in which being a Jew was somewhat inadvisable. Luckily for him and for me, his father had read Mein Kampf. So when the German occupation of Poland began, he was wise enough to take his family and leave the country as soon as possible. And so my grandfather, the infant, wound up in Siberia, the Soviet Union, where he essentially grew up. Life in Siberia was hard. His father passed away not soon after their arrival, leaving Grandpa and his mom behind. She gave her part to society as a math teacher, and she had no one to leave home with my grandfather, so he would come along with her to class. And that is where Grandpa met math. One could say he was destined to be a mathematician. And also, although the circumstances were grim, I think we can all agree that he really did love math. That was his thing. I remember he would bring a paper with him anywhere to read while waiting in line or waiting for food or waiting for anything. He brought one for my bar mitzvah, too. That was most of what he did in his free time, and obviously that had an effect on all of us. From as early as I can remember, he would try to teach me some mathematical concepts he had thought a growing boy needed to know. Who else but David Schmeidler would try to explain the Monty Hall problem to an elementary school student who hadn't yet learned what a fraction is? He might have gotten frustrated, but he wouldn't get angry. He wasn't an angry person. That's not to say I'm hopeless at maths, but when it comes to these subjects and to giving perspective about my grandfather when it comes to them, I'm not really one to ask. When I was a little kid, he would often take me with him to work. As a kid, those were really fun days. I would go to an office, and it had a really big blackboard where I could draw all kinds of stuff that I wanted, but really big. And those were blackboards, so it was basically cows or zebras, which is what a child knows to draw and is black and white. And when I wasn't doing that, we would go to get coffee. I would get chalky milk, but he would get coffee. He would talk with someone I didn't know about something I didn't understand. And thinking back, that does seem like a dream job. Although nowadays I would get coffee instead. He always had a knack for coffee. Wherever he was, he always knew where to find a great coffee shop. And that must have had something to do with how particular he was about food. And this was mentioned earlier too. Anyone who'd ever gone to a restaurant with him knows what I'm talking about. He'd always need to make an informed choice. So he'd ask about everything. Where are your fish from? What type of tomatoes do you use in your salad? What type of rice is used in this risotto, and so on, until sufficient data was collected and a choice could be made, which was usually a pretty odd combination of the options the menu offered. Just another example of his creativity, I guess. In the last few years, my grandparents, along with others, would meet every Saturday morning in a local cafe. And while the coffee there wasn't as characteristically good, the company was, and that was most that mattered. My mother and I would join them once a couple of weeks, and my grandpa, like the rest of them, was always so excited to see us, even though it was a really mundane thing. And even now, after he's gone, we still meet up at the same place, same intervals, same mundane talks, still going strong, even though we miss him a lot. And I want to thank you a lot for coming to this conference, to these sessions, and especially those who chose to speak. It really means a lot to us, and thank you.